Hello, dear friends. How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to our weekly Skok Studio live stream, which we do every Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I'm Heidi Skok, as you all know. And we don't have any singers tonight because I was out of town this week, and I decided I was so busy that I did not see if anybody was going to be available to sing tonight. So I thought we would use the time tonight, instead of canceling the live stream. I want to tell you why I was in New York City. I sang for the Metropolitan Opera yesterday. I sang an audition for them. And anybody that knows my story knows that I was a young artist at the Metropolitan Opera from 1991 until 94. And I was there as a soprano. And as you can hear from my voice, I'm not a soprano. And my journey was very interesting, very long. And there was a lot of things that I encountered because I really was in the wrong range. But that being said, let's see, what year was it? In 2003. See, after I had been as a young artist until 94, they kept me on from 1998 until 2003. I was singing secondary soprano roles at the Met. And that was challenging because, again, I really wasn't a mezzo or a soprano. So I finished with the Met in 2003. They retired my soprano voice. And I'll never forget, as I was walking out from the last the last show of the production of Moses und Aaron, Schönberg, the Met always put me in all the German and all the hard, difficult German. I did a lot of shows underneath James Levine. And so as I was walking out from the Met, I remember turning around and looking at those grand arches. And I remember feeling succinctly that I was finished, even before I got the letter, which I got 2 weeks later. Talk about intuition. I knew I was done. And in some ways, shortly thereafter, that was 2003, and it was probably in 2005 or even 2006 that I crashed and burned as a soprano. My soprano days came to an absolute halt. It was during a gig for the Albany Symphony Orchestra, and it was I'll never forget it. It was Rafe Vaughan Williams Benedicite, and it had a B natural at the end, and I think I had to extend it for like 12 counts or something, and it was just a killer. And I couldn't do it. I just couldn't get into that top anymore. And by going over it and over it and over it, I developed nodes. And so I was really forced in so many ways to leave the soprano. And looking back on all of it now, I'm so grateful. But my journey has been most interesting to singers because it has been such a journey. It wasn't an easy. People didn't look at me and say you're a contralto, because that very first voice teacher had lifted my voice up out of its range, really. So that being said, I have been working solidly for the last year. I did an opera program by the Premier Opera Institute, which you probably have heard of. You can Google them. It's POVI, Premier Opera Vocal Arts Institute. And they normally meet in Italy, but because of COVID last summer, they were online. And so I saw that they were partnering with NIOP, which is the New York Institute of Opera Auditions or something, an NYIOP. And I got an email saying that they were having an anonymous, I think that was what they're called, anonymous auditions. And so I decided that was something I should do, because nobody would know my story. Nobody would know my face, because oftentimes, when people, think of me, let's just say they would say, oh, Heidi Skok, how could she be a contralto? She was a soprano. You see, the imagination doesn't always go so deep. And so I knew that that was my opportunity, that nobody would know who I was. And so I got to work on Erde from Das Rheingold, Wagner. And I went to our partnership down at the Cleveland, in Cleveland, I'm so tired from my trip, the Center for Rock Research. And we partner with them. And so I made a recording of Erde, and I sent it in. And I did advance. In fact, I didn't expect to advance, and I advanced into the next level where I could sing, live, blackened out so nobody could see who I was. But I could sing for these German houses, and so I did. And I was so excited. I didn't go past that level, but I didn't have the rep ready either. I really just used the opportunity to get a nod of the head that indeed I was this lower voice that I was working on, and I felt I was. And, I had been mezzo from 2006 until last year, really. And so, but that always still felt very high. So, long story short, I did this, I got an email from these wonderful people later saying that they were having a Wagnerian week in their Povai program. And they invited me to come. And there were people there like Jane Eaglin, who has sung a lot of Wagner. And I was invited to do this online program for 1 week. Well, I jumped on it. I didn't have any ego. I knew I was going to be the oldest person there. I'm 53. I didn't have any pretensions. I didn't care that I was probably going to be the mother figure there because it was all emerging artists. I just wanted to get from that program everything that I could get from it. So essentially, I'm telling you that I dropped my ego a long time ago. I'm no longer concerned what people think. I'm concerned that I figure it out for myself. Because like I said, it's been such a long journey. So anyway, that was a wonderful week. And as soon as I opened my mouth with the Weiche Wotan Weiche, everybody said, "You're a contralto. Where have you been?" And, they just couldn't believe my story. It's just such an interesting story. And so I had a wonderful week, and I was finally identified as that contralto. And it's just been a wonderful year after that. I began to meditate. I'm a meditator. And I began to meditate on who I should study with because I knew I needed a teacher to help me get to this next level. And so it came very clearly to me, and I reached out to a colleague of mine, Mark Oswald, who had started off with me at the Wolf Trap Opera years ago when we were just kids entering in the Young Artist program at the Met. We did the Met program together. And I just had a good feeling about him. I knew he was a good person. I knew he was an excellent artist. And I knew I could count on him to help me. And so I began working with him, and weekly. And I began working with Roger Malouf, who is a wonderful, he was an assistant conductor at the Met for years and knows his Wagner. I also worked with Craig Rutenberg, who was the head of the music staff at the Met when I was there as a young artist. And so I want to say how grateful I am that I had these people to reach out to. I never burned any bridges, and I think that's something that young singers really need to hear. I never blamed anybody for my story or my journey. I've just known that people did the best that they knew how for where I was, because truthfully the voice had been hiked up tremendously so. Who wouldn't think? If you listen to old recordings of mine, which you can find on my YouTube channel, Heidi Skok, you'll hear what I'm talking about. It was very, very hiked up. And so, it was what it was. And I was able this past year to reach out to my former agent that I had at Columbia Artists Management when it was that in New York. And, because I never burned bridges there, and I was always grateful, and they didn't know what to do with me, really. When I was singing the soprano, they didn't really know what to do. But I never burned a bridge, and I had her to reach out to, and she has been so helpful to me this past year. Just really guiding me when I've asked for advice and her opinion on things. It's been wonderful. And so I spent the last, I think, was it 45 weeks, Jim? I spent 45 weeks working to get myself ready to sing auditions again, because I know that there is a place in the world for my voice. And that's what I teach all of my students. I don't listen to negativity. There's only so many jobs, or, I'm 53 and they're not going to open the door up for me again. That ageism baloney. Right now, I'm at the perfect place for these roles that I can sing, and that only I can sing in the way that I sing it. Every contralto is different. Every voice is different, and we're all so special in how we do things. And so I knew there was a place for me. So I knew also that I was going to eventually ask the Met to hear me again. And if I had listened to my ego, I would not have done that, because I would have said to myself, oh, they didn't like me. I was this, I was that. This happened. This didn't work out for me. Poor me, poor me, poor me. I don't listen to those thoughts. I've learned to think good, loving thoughts about myself. And that's what I teach singers to do. So, with that in mind, I said to my teacher, Mark, I said, I want to sing for the Met. And so we really worked, and I have 6 arias now that I can do, but I was only ready with 3 of them. And I knew that, I would have to do this soon, because by the time I get the other 2 arias together, it's going to be another few months, and then time just keeps going by, and then the excuses can set in. It's so easy as a singer to make excuses for yourself. Oh, I'm not ready. I don't look good enough. I can't do that. I won't be hired. I shut all those thoughts out. And so probably 3 weeks ago, I found myself saying to my teacher, I'm ready to sing for the Met. Was I really ready? I don't know. Are we ever really, really ready? I don't think so. I think we're ready for where we are right now, today. And so I said, I'm ready. I'm at that point where I know I can go and do a good job. And so I wrote to the Met myself. People helped me connect again, because it's all new administration there. Nobody that I knew when I was there is there anymore. And so I was so lovingly connected to the right person. And I wrote and I asked if I could be heard again. And I shared my story briefly. And I said also that I had raised 4 children, and that they're now at the point that I'm going to be an empty nester this fall, and I'm going to have time to sing. I did the right thing by raising my kids. And so they wrote back. I didn't know when I would hear back. I didn't know anything about it. I just let it go. I wrote and I let it go. And they wrote back within a week and said they would love to hear me, and that they were giving my materials to the person who was listening to the auditions. And there was a sign of empathy and kindness for my journey, which I thought was wonderful. I really thought that was wonderful. I was so grateful. It was very accepting. And so I was amazed, actually, that I got the audition. And I admit that for a few days I was kind of like, ooh, really nervous. But I teach a lot about mindset and breath work in my vocal teaching. And so I knew it was time for me to put to practice what it is I teach other people. And so I really got to work on that. And then the time came for me to leave, which was this past Monday, and I sang yesterday. And I got on a plane, and I had to go all the way to St. Louis, because that's how Southwest works from Cleveland, and then fly from St. Louis over to New York. And I stayed with a wonderful friend, and she was such a wonderful host. But if you can imagine this, and she says this never happens, they were doing road work right outside of the bedroom window. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if I can't get any sleep? And so I have to admit, I was nervous. I had to really, really work. I called Jim, my partner, and I said, "What am I going to do? This road work? I got to sleep. I got to sleep." And he says, "Where's your meditation? Where is it?" And it's so true. So I was able to turn that around, and I got some good sleep. And the day before the audition, I didn't see anybody. I want to tell you this because it's so tempting. Singers always want to go and chat. I've got a lot of friends in New York City that I would love to see. I would have loved to have gone and had a coffee. I don't even drink coffee anymore, but I'd have tea with these wonderful singers, my friends. And I opted to see nobody. And it's not that I'm unkind at all. I love to visit with people. It's just that I know what I need to do before I do a performance, before I sing a performance or an audition. And that is to be with my characters. And so I spent all day on Tuesday working on my character analysis, writing in my journal, who am I? Why am I here? Where am I? Writing out an entire scenario. I got these wonderful papers from Christopher Mattaliano, who runs now his own opera company out in Portland. And right now the name of it is escaping me, but he ran Portland Opera for a long time. Wonderful, wonderful director. Wonderful. And years ago he gave me these papers, I think when I was a young artist at the Met, about how to form a character. And I've lived with those papers. So I spent all day Tuesday just thinking about where am I? Why am I saying this? I must have listened to 40 different singers on YouTube singing Erde, Weiche, Wotan Weiche. And I was able to compile. It was just so interesting. I was able to see what other people were saying and why they were saying it, singing it, the way they were singing it. It was so beautiful. And so I spent the whole day, and I went to bed early and then had the road work. So I had to deal with that. But, the next day, when I got up, I meditated and said to myself, what is it that I need to do? And I was to sing at 2:50. And so I realized that I needed to go and move my body. I think that's really, really important for me because I get a lot of energy. And so I have to, expel some of that and find more comfort and peace within myself. So I went for a really fast power walk, probably walked about 2.5 miles. Then I came back and I just did some really good stretching in a mild workout. I didn't work out heavy, just, good 20-minute workout. And then I meditated. I laid on my back and I must have gone through, I don't know, three different meditations. I love Danette May a lot. She's a wonderful fitness person in the world. She has some good meditations. She has one called the loving meditation, and it was all about self-love and positive affirmations. I did a meditation probably from the Calm app, which I love. But, that was so important. And then I do certain breathing exercises, box breathing. I mean, I really, folks, spent probably a good 2 hours just getting myself physically and mentally set up for what I was going to do at 2:50 yesterday. So I felt ready. And then my wonderful host, my wonderful friend, made me a lunch. She's such a loving, loving person. And I had just a salad with a little bit of turkey bacon for my protein. And I made sure I drink. I drink a gallon of water a day. You think that's a lot, but it's not. For me, it's absolutely necessary. It's just so lubricating on my voice. And so by the time I sang yesterday, I had consumed a half gallon. I don't, you don't want to drink it all. I drink it from dawn to dusk, the gallon, not all at once. So I was really I was ready. And so when I went to get in the cab, and I was waiting for the cab, I just kept mentally saying to myself how wonderful this was going to be, that I was so ready. And going down Broadway, because my friend lives higher up on Broadway, and the Met's down at 66th and Broadway. And I was really thinking, just positive thoughts. And I saw on a store a sign that said, progress, not perfection. And I said, wow. I even took a picture of it. That sign was for me. I was going there to show my progress. I wasn't going there to be perfect. And so I got there, and dear friends, I can't even begin to tell you. Walking into the backstage area of the Met, 20 years have gone by. 20 years since they retired me. I've raised my children. My oldest son is 22. I mean, a lot has transpired from that time. A lot has transpired. And they've changed so much at Lincoln Center. I mean, now you walk in, it's like remodeled everything. That underground tunnel that leads to the backstage entrance. The backstage entrance itself is still the same. It's almost like I didn't leave, except that they have the security place right in the center now. And it was so wonderful to sign in. It was just so wonderful. I can't even begin to describe it. And we sat there. My wonderful coach, Roger Malouf, went with me. And his presence is so gentle and so kind that I knew it would be nothing but a help to me. And that's why I asked him to go. And he just sat there because he knew I was sitting there meditating and breathing while we were waiting for the coach to come that was going to play for me. The assistant conductor at the Met who was going to play for me. He was just fabulous. We went down to his office, went down into the sea level. I hadn't been down on sea level in 20 years. Just absolutely astounding. And I went into that room, and it was like everything was there. The voice was so rich and warm, so in the place. Everything was connected. The character was there. I felt like I was the character. That's how I want to do auditions and performances. I don't go out there as Heidi Skok. I have to go out there as Baba. I have to go out there as Erda. I have to go out there as Kwasi. And so I was there. I was in that zone. And so I was really ready. And so I had a half hour after my rehearsal with this wonderful pianist and conductor. And we went back up. And outside of it was in List Hall. And outside of List Hall are these beautiful benches. And there were singers there that were waiting to sing. And I checked in. Roger checked me in. I didn't have to even check in. And I chose not to go and sit on those benches and talk to other singers because I need quiet. I always recommend to singers, don't stand around and talk to other singers. I love other singers, but I don't say anything until I'm done. Then I can be Heidi Skok and I can say, how are you, and blah, blah, blah. So I chose to stay outside on another set of couches, which was down the hall. And I knew when it was my time that they would find me. Do you know there were so many wonderful colleagues that happened to walk by that I got to say hello to? And everybody's face was covered up with masks. Those are the rules at the Met. And I saw a security guard that I knew 20 and 30 years ago when I was a young artist, 30 years ago when I was a young artist there. George. He's now head of security. I recognized him. I said, I know you. And you couldn't even see his face, just his eyes. And he says, I know you too. You're Heidi. I recognized you by your eyes. And I was like, I recognized you with your eyes. But isn't that amazing how that guy never forgot me? And I never forgot him. Just the power of saying hello to people every day. I would always, when I walked into the Met, say, how are you today? So good to see you. So it was just then my time came to sing. And after I had seen all these wonderful colleagues, because I did need to say hello to those colleagues that walked by. I'm not going to sit and ignore people. I had like 10 minutes, and I just sat and breathed and just closed my eyes and just pondered these characters, just stayed with those characters. And so when it was my time to walk into the hall, I was like Zen. I really knew that I could trust that what I was going to do was going to come forward. And I could trust that. And so I started with Erda. And I was very pleased. I was able to give the character and the voice and everything. And I can't tell you, dear friends, how wonderful it was to sing low. Because when I was at the Met, everything had to be high. And it was such a struggle. I can't even begin to tell you. And yesterday was just such ease. It was such ease. And then they asked me for Kwasi, which was what I was hoping for. And I got to sing that, and I was in the character, and it was just wonderful. And I have to learn it in French because they do it in French. And then I'm working on that now. I've started on that today. And I just got back this morning. But it was just wonderful. It could not have been better. It could not have been better. And I was just so willing to the whole point of that audition for me was to just show what I can do and where I am now. That was the whole point for me. Not to, please hire me. But it was more like, look what I can do now. I figured it out. And friends, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Am I hoping I can do something there again? Sure. I sure am. But I can't begin to tell you the feeling of satisfaction that I have right now. That I overcame these thoughts that, oh, you can't do that. It's been 20, 30 years since you've been there. I'm still on the top of my game, and I'm just starting. And so I hope my story, that you can see yourself in my story. If you're sitting there saying you're too old, you can't do it, you don't have the confidence, whatever. You do have the confidence and you do have the ability. And you have a voice. And the voice needs to be heard. You were given the voice for a reason. So you have to use it. And I'm just so grateful. I can't even begin to tell you. I had one heck of a trip getting home. I didn't get home till this morning. I got on the plane last night, and there were storms in New York, and so we sat for 5 hours on the plane, and they finally flew us to Chicago, and I had to stay in a hotel that wasn't so hotelish. And then I had to walk to the airport this morning, and I won't say all of that, but I got home this morning, and so, but you know, it's all worth it. Every challenge that I have ever had was worth this success. I'm talking, I felt like that audition was a culmination of 30 years of a journey that was, I don't know, felt like I was in the wilderness. It's worth it, dear friends. It's worth it. And it doesn't come down to anybody but yourself. It doesn't come down to anybody but yourself. And I had that spirit going yesterday. And as I walked out of that audition, I said this to the people that I was singing for. I said, I can't tell you how wonderful it is to sing here in a low voice. We all laughed. So many blessings to you, dear friends. Don't give up on yourself. Sometimes it takes 30 years, but it will happen. I love you, and thank you for joining tonight, and we'll be back with our regular programming next week.